Ever get that feeling? Like you're walking on eggshells in a relationship, never quite sure if something's okay or if you need to watch what you say.
Oh, absolutely.
Like maybe there's just a bit too much,
Yeah.
help. The kind that feels, well, a little controlling,
Yeah, yeah,
and it leaves you feeling uneasy.
definitely.
So today we're diving deep right into the heart of those tricky relationship dynamics.
We are.
Are we talking about a relationship that's actually toxic? Or is it more a case of, like, overprotectiveness? Or maybe just somewhere in between?
It's a really good question, and it's something a lot of people struggle with.
It is. And we're drawing insights from the notes of another podcast, actually. It's called Toxicity versus Overprotection, Navigating Relationship Boundaries.
Catchy, right.
I know. But what's really interesting is their episode idea titled Understanding the Fine Line, which is what we are going to try to do today.
Absolutely.
Because we all deserve healthy, supportive relationships. And to get there, sometimes you've got to be able to spot those red flags.
For sure.
We're giving you the tools to tell the difference between genuine care and that more controlling behavior.
Yeah.
Ready to jump in?
Let's do it. I think it's really interesting because one of the notes actually pointed out that many people struggle to even define these terms in the first place.
Oh, for sure.
Like, what does it even mean for a relationship to be toxic? It's a big one.
Yeah, it's heavy.
It is. And it's
Well,
important to remember that a toxic relationship at its core involves consistent behaviors that damage your self-esteem.
okay.
And they create a real imbalance of power in the relationship.
Imbalance of power. Now, that's a big one to unpack.
Right. So we're talking about a situation where one person consistently calls all the shots.
Makes sense.
They may control resources, maybe finances even, and the other person is often left feeling unheard, unseen, like they don't have a voice.
Wow.
Yeah, and it can get pretty intense, but it's important to remember that toxicity isn't always like a screaming match.
No, not like in the movies.
Exactly. It can be really subtle, and I think that's what makes this whole conversation tricky.
It is. And it's interesting because one of the notes actually mentioned a relationship therapist who talked about this.
Yeah.
They were saying how in their practice, they see that it's often the little things,
Totally.
like backhanded compliments disguised as jokes,
Of the worst.
or like constant guilt trips,
Yeah.
or just that feeling of, always needing to tiptoe around someone.
Exactly. It's that constant tension. And I think that's where the lines can get really blurry between toxicity and, like you were saying earlier, overprotectiveness.
Totally. Because overprotective behaviors, they usually start with good intentions, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like a parent wanting to keep their child safe.
Right.
Or a partner who genuinely thinks they're helping.
It's coming from a good place.
Yeah, but then it crosses that line, doesn't it? It becomes controlling.
Yeah.
And suddenly it's limiting your freedom and your independence, and that's when it becomes a problem.
100%. Ugh. It's so frustrating. I've totally been there. Let me order your pizza, honey. You always get it wrong. Like, I think I can handle a pepperoni passion.
Right. Some things you've got to figure out for yourself.
Exactly. But it's true. It can be so hard to recognize when someone's help becomes too much. Where do you draw that line?
It's tough. And, whether we're talking about toxicity or overprotection, both can have a huge impact on your well-being.
Oh, absolutely.
Toxicity, it chips away at your self-worth, just erodes it.
It's true.
And that can show up as anxiety, depression. You start to feel like you're constantly shrinking yourself to fit someone else's idea of who you should be.
Yeah.
And overprotection, well, we said it comes from a good place often, but it can really stunt your personal growth.
That makes sense.
Think about it. If you're never allowed to make mistakes, if you're never allowed to face challenges on your own, how are you going to develop that confidence, the resilience to actually thrive, right? You're not going to develop that inner strength. It's almost like they're trying to keep you in this little bubble, but you're going to want to pop it at some point, Spread your wings and fly.
Exactly. And everyone's journey is their own.
I know. And it made me think, because the episode idea for the podcast actually mentioned that they wanted to include stories from people who've navigated these really complicated dynamics.
Oh, wow.
And one of the stories that they highlighted was about this woman whose friend was constantly questioning her choices, second-guessing everything.
Yeah.
And it really made her doubt herself.
That's tough.
She eventually realized her friend's advice, it wasn't really advice, was it?
No.
It was about control.
It was controlling her life. Yeah.
It's powerful stuff to think about.
It is. And I think those kinds of stories, they highlight why open communication and healthy boundaries are so, so important in any relationship.
Absolutely. Being able to talk to each other honestly and openly is crucial.
It is. And, it's funny because in the podcast notes, they actually talk to a communication expert who had a really interesting suggestion.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
They suggested using I statements when you're trying to have those tough conversations.
I statements. Tell me more.
So instead of saying, like, you're always late, which can feel very accusatory,
Right.
you could say something like, I feel hurt and disrespected when you're late for our plans.
Okay, I like that.
It shifts the focus. It's not about placing blame anymore. It's about expressing how you feel.
That's such a game changer.
Mm.
But how do we spot the difference then between those red flags, those signs of a toxic or overly controlling relationship, and those green flags, the signs of healthy support?
That is the question, isn't it? It really comes down to paying attention to patterns.
Patterns.
Yeah, like how do you feel after spending time with this person? Do you feel emotionally drained?
Oh.
Are you constantly second-guessing yourself?
Yeah.
Are your needs consistently disregarded? These are all big red flags. Another one, think about this. Are you canceling plans with other friends or family because your partner doesn't approve? That's a sign.
Yeah, that's a big one.
It is. Now, on the other hand, those green flags, those are the signs that the relationship is built on mutual respect. Think respect for your decisions, even when you disagree, genuine encouragement to pursue your goals and explore.
Even if it means letting go a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about finding that balance between support and space.
Support in space. I like that. And it's funny because we've been talking about this in the context of romantic relationships, but these dynamics, they can pop up anywhere, can't they?
Oh, absolutely.
Friendships,
Yes.
family dynamic.
100%.
I mean, what about that overbearing boss who micromanages your every move?
Oh, yeah.
Same principles apply.
Totally. It's about recognizing those patterns.
So as you're listening to this, reflecting on these insights, think about all the different relationships in your life. Are there any red flags popping up?
Good question.
How can you set those healthy boundaries?
Yeah.
How can you communicate your needs more effectively? Food for thought.